Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third episode of Discussion Points. This is going to be a longer episode. Thankfully, I'm going to break it up into about 3 or 4 parts. For this first part of our episode, though, I'm proud to be joined by Jordan Palmer, fresh off 2 second-place finishes in the Melbourne City Championships over the weekend. Welcome, Jordan.
Thanks, buddy.
And we've got a little bit to cover today. Hopefully, we won't go too long. We're mainly going to be talking about the events that occurred at Geelong and Werribee over the weekend. So, first of all, congratulations on your 2 second-place finishes. That netted you a total of 60 championship points, I believe?
I think it's 80. 40 points.
80, actually. Wow, okay. Alright.
Yeah. Good
That's
weekend.
good. And did you play the same deck on both days?
Same 60 cards.
Same 60 cards. You decided after the first day that second place was pretty good and you'd like to sort of stick with that goal?
Yep, it works.
That's good. That's very good. For the sake of clarity for our audience, what was the deck you were playing?
I played Veltal, Zoroark, Mega Mewtwo Y.
Okay. I have seen that deck pop up quite a lot, actually, and it was very popular in the Melbourne cities that as we will see later on, I believe. I thought it was quite popular with lots of Vettel running around. Last week on our show, Andrew predicted, and myself actually, that Night March would be the most popular deck. Do you believe that was the case?
I think it was. There was a mixture of Night March Vespiquen, Night March Milotic. Not much straight Night March with Bronzong. I think it was mainly either Vespiquen or Milotic.
Okay.
But I'd say overall Night March was probably the most played event over the entire weekend.
And that's sort of what we're going to talk about in our point now, the meta game for Melbourne this weekend. I'd like you to just chat about what you felt the meta might be going into this weekend and what you had planned to do in relation to that. Obviously, you chose to go with a Vettel, Mewtwo, Zoroark. For a specific reason, would you like to enlighten us why?
No problem. So, obviously, I was looking at previous results to try and guess what people were going to play. I saw Michael Khan won the double Tasmania cities. I was therefore expecting a fair bit of Night March. To counter that, I was therefore thinking a Veltal would be played a lot, go figure, and a lot of bats as well. So I'd say a mixture of like a Night March, a Veltal, and bat variants were going to make up 90% of the field. That was my prediction.
Okay. And going in, obviously playing with the baby Vettel, you were banking on a lot of these smaller decks, a lot of these decks that you could easily deal with the baby Vettel. Just talk us quickly through your matchups, if you can recall, for both day 1 and day 2. What do you think you played the most of, the bulk of, in the 2 days?
I've actually brought notes to remind me what I played.
Oh, fantastic. That'd be great. Thank you.
First round, I played against Stephen Filiposki playing Seismitoad Zoroark red card, and I won that 2-1. Second round was Michael Zernsak with Raichu Bats Milotic, and that was 2-0 my way. Third round was Samir Sengwan with Delayed Artillery, and that was 2-0 my way as well. Round 4 was Brendan Varg, once again Delayed Artillery, and I won the first game. Second game went, time was called, so we didn't finish the second game, so I won the set. Round 5 was Michael Khan playing Night March Vespiquen, and lost that 2-0. And then final round of Swiss was Manny Macefield playing YZG, and it was 1-1, and then time was called, so we tied that as well.
So your record ended being 4-1-1?
That's correct.
Okay. And how about for day 2? What was your day 2 like?
Day 2, I played against Jason Davies in round 1, playing Lucario Hammers. Round 2, Scott White playing Manectric Bats. Round 3, Samir Sengwan with Manectric Toad Bats. Round 4, Scott Langford in a mirror match. Round 5 was Sam Leo playing Toad Bats red card. And round 6 was Angus Johnson, and he was playing Night March, but I just ID'd to get into cut.
Okay. And unfortunately, ended 4-1-1 on both days. And now, you unfortunately won't be able to see this. However, I am going to bring up something. 1 second, sorry. I'm going to bring up the results for Geelong first, and then Werribee, and we're going to chat about them, the top 8 specifically. So,
Sounds good.
finishing second, of course, at the Geelong, we saw in the top 8, we saw Night March with Milotic, you, of course,
Yep.
playing Vettel with Mewtwo Y, Michael Kahn playing his Night March Vespiquen deck. Scott Langford, on our graphic here, it says that he played Vespiquen Night March, but he actually played Vettel Mewtwo Y, the same deck as you.
Yep.
5th was Robin Sanguan with Manectric, Seismitoad, Crobat. 6th, Sam Alderman with Gardevoir. 7th, Michael Zernsack with Raichu, Crobat. And 8th, Blake Davies with Entei, Charizard. Now, this is quite a diverse top 8, actually, for the first day.
2 decks were the same, other than that, all the rest were different. If you include the 2 Night Marches being different.
And there were 62 players on the day, so there was obviously a lot of variety and a lot of players on the day to really spice up the variety in general. Did you expect... Were there any decks in this top 8, of course, that you may not have expected to play against? I know personally I wouldn't have expected to play against Gardevoir.
Yeah, actually. Well, to be honest, I wasn't too surprised. I mean, I tested Sam a lot, and I knew he was going to play Gardevoir. And looking at the metagame, which I predicted, being a lot of Yveltal and Bat type variants, I think Gardevoir has a pretty good matchup against those. It loses to Night March, but I was actually had pretty high hopes for Sam to make Gardevoir, so I wasn't too surprised there. But in general, I wouldn't have expected Gardevoir to do well at an event this big. Night March and Yveltal decks, I was very much expecting. Toad Bats, I was like Manectric Toad Bats, I was expecting. I don't think I was expecting Entei to do well. That was a bit of a surprise. But I guess it's not that weird to see one cut.
Yeah. Do you feel like, obviously coming second on both days, you had a very strong run. Do you feel like there was anything that maybe held you back on the day? As with a deck as consistent and as strong as Yveltal Mewtwo, there can't be too much that you really feel like you missed. Was there a specific card or a set of cards that you missed?
Yeah, there was a few cards which I wish I had that I didn't. One of them was Silent Lab, because a lot of Night March decks aren't playing Stadium, so I thought a turn 1 Silent Lab could turn that in from a bad matchup into a pretty good matchup. But it's kind of a bad card for any other matchup, so I didn't think it was worth playing. But it is a card I wish I had for some games.
Is there anything else?
With heaps of cards, actually. I wish I played Giovanni for +20. Too many to mention, but I'd say that Silent Lab and Giovanni are probably the 2 main cards that I would wish I had, but can't fit in.
And let's talk about the second day now. I've brought up the Werribee stats, again placing second. I would like to just quickly go over the top 8 again. So in first place we have Seismitoad, Giratina. Second place, of course, yourself with a Vettel Mewtwo. Third, Raichu, Crobat, Milotic. Michael making another appearance in the top 8 as well. Fourth, Angus with Night March, Milotic. And 5th through 7th, variants of Manectric, Seismitoad, Crobat. And in 8th, Gallade Octillery. Now, there were less people at this event, however, that does not, of course, diminish anyone's performance. Do you feel like this top 8 is more indicative of the format currently that we have?
I actually don't think so. I think Seismitoad Giratina was a big shock to everyone. I believe it may have been the only one in the whole field, so for it to come first was pretty good medic haul, I'd say. Other than that, Manectric Crobat did better than I thought, but I was expecting it to be played in higher numbers, so 3 being a cut isn't too big. I was expecting more Night March to make it to the top again, but I was surprised only 1 made it. I thought Night March Vespiquen might have made an appearance in the top 8, but it didn't.
And after your... Oh, sorry. Please keep going.
I was just going to say, overall, the metagame was fairly similar between the 2 days.
It does feel like the not a lot has changed between day 1 and day 2. However, the obvious exclusion that I can see is very little Vespiquen, and I believe there was a lot less Vespiquen at this event as well. Do you think that was because after day 1, a lot of the decks that were very popular and that topped were counters to Vespiquen and to Night March as well?
Yeah, it's quite likely. I guess it's also worth noting that Night March Vespiquen has trouble against other Night March variants. And after seeing Night March win the first event, I think quite a lot of the Night March players would opt not to play Vespiquen for the second day.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good point. We're gonna oh sorry, please.
The Night March Vespiquen players, I believe, mainly lost to the other Night March players, who then lost to the Night March techs, like the decks that were countering Night March, which therefore led to only one making cut.
Yeah. I asked Andrew last week, and I want to ask this question to all of my guests, but is there a deck in the format that you really enjoy playing that you haven't had a chance to play yet? Is there one that maybe you're testing that you haven't had a chance to bring out? Maybe there's something you've seen or you've looked at online that you'd really like to play?
There's a deck which I enjoy playing, but I haven't played yet, in an event, which is Raichu Bats. I think that deck's really fun, and I think it's got really good matchups around the board. It's just, the thing I don't like about it is A, its consistency. It can be a little clunky with all the evolution pieces and stuff, and B, I don't like how easy it is to counter with like Parallel City and stuff. So I think it's a bit of a risky play, but in the right field, and a right hand, it's amazing. Not much can stop it once it gets rolling. And another deck which I actually haven't tested, but I really want to get around to testing is the Baby Xerneas deck, where you have the one that does 30 for each different type of Pokemon in your bench.
Yes, yeah.
There's a lot of different ways you can take advantage of that, and I think I'm definitely keen to try out a few different variants of that build.
Yeah, the obvious inclusion is the Regis, which have the 60 attacks for 3 energy with different effects.
Yep.
That actually does sound like a really fun deck. Now, just before we wrap up, sorry, I do have 2 more questions for you. Are you planning on traveling anywhere else in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to be going to the Double Sydney Championships in 3 weeks, I believe. And then, depending on whether I've hit my BFL or not by that time, I might go to Melbourne as well. But I'm hoping between Sydney and Adelaide, which is possibly going to be getting 2 events as well. I'm hoping between those 4 I should be able to hit my BFL before Melbourne comes around.
Okay, and finally, we don't have any events going on this weekend because of pre-releases for the new set, but on the 6th and 7th, which is 2 weeks from now, we have Launceston, Brisbane, and Sydney all have a city championships. If you could pick a deck that's going to be popular for Launceston, or Brisbane and Sydney in particular with the larger player bases, what do you think is going to be the most played deck at the event?
It's kind of hard to pick a deck for 3 different events, but I think if people are using the Melbourne double as a reference for what's going to be played, I'm not sure if Seismitoad Giratina winning is going to change much. I feel like that might scare off a few Night March players who are playing like just the Milotic variant. I think maybe people will go more for a Bronzong type Night March if they're going to play Night March as an event. And I think it'll also encourage more EX-based decks to start popping up to try and beat Giratina. But if being only one in the field, it could just be completely ignored as well. So it's really hard to choose at this point. I'm going to stick with Night March as being the most played deck, though.
That is definitely a fair assumption.
Such a safe play.
It is. It absolutely is. It doesn't really have a particularly glaring weak matchup that is played in excessive popularity. I think that going into Brisbane and Sydney in particular, Sydney always produces a lot of weird results, and I think that Manectric might be very popular in the top 8 there.
Yeah, that's a good assumption.
Thank you very much for joining me this evening, Jordan. You are only part 1 of about 3 or 4 parts of this week's show we're going to do, but I want to thank you again for taking the time out of your evening to come and join me.
Not a problem. Thanks to you too, Bodhi.
No problem, buddy. Alright, guys, this has been Discussion Points Part 1. Hopefully Part 2 will be up not too long after this one, featuring Nathan Nguyen and Ruben Cortez, 2 top 4 finishers from the Canberra City Championships. Thanks, guys, and see you soon.